Do you believe in magic? All right, I want you to imagine two girls, maybe about the age of our Benot Mitzvah tonight. They're native Houstonians, members of Reformed congregations. They didn't grow up together, but they met in middle school playing sports together. Their parents watch them play and cheer from the sidelines and chat about this or that, like parents do when they're watching their kids play sports. They have little inside jokes like tugging on each other's hair when they pass in the hall. They plan things to do outside of school, just, two friends. Something many of us have experienced and most of us have witnessed. Nothing really magical, though, is there? But maybe there is. Our Torah portion this week seems to tell us that the Torah believes in magic. Tucked into the portion, T'tzaveh, which is a whole portion about what the priests should wear, there's a mysterious verse about two stones called the Urim and Tumim. In addition to the ephod and the diadem that says holy to Adonai, the priest is supposed to wear something called the breastpiece of decision, on which these two magical stones should be stored. The Torah tells us that they should be on the high priest's heart whenever he comes before Adonai. And there's one other reference in the entire Torah, just one other verse to these two stones, later in the book of Numbers, when the Torah teaches us that the high priest shall seek a decision for a querent using the Urim stones. The stones were likely used for divination and judgment, kind of like runes or tarot reading or tea leaves. So we may not believe in magic necessarily, but the Torah definitely does. And maybe that doesn't convince you. After all, the Torah is thousands of years old. It predates scientific method and rationalism. Today we use statistics to make predictions. But in Judaism, it's not just the Torah that believes in magic. There's actually this strong through line of magical thinking that stretches from antiquity to today. In archaeological sites around the ancient Near East, incantation bowls have been found near the thresholds of homes. These bowls had prayers or magical formulas inscribed onto their clay. Some of the prayers were for good health for specific people. Others were formulas to keep demons from entering the house. They were buried near the front door of a home so that bad energy and demons would stay away and good energy, or maybe good vibes, as those two young girls might say, could enter the home. Sometimes on these incantation bowls were confessions, and there are scholars who think that the confessions we say today on Yom Kippur, like Ashamnu and Al Chet and even Kol Nidre, are sourced from these incantation bowls. They fell out of favor, and the only reason we know about them is because they were buried and were preserved. But people found other ways to find magic. They used to write incantations on pieces of parchment and roll them in and tuck them inside their mezuzah along with the prayers that are supposed to be there. This practice was so common that the medieval physician and Rabbi Maimonides wrote an entire diatribe about how horrible it was that people were writing these magical incantations. And despite the great chief rabbi of Cairo, preaching against it, hundreds, if not thousands, of these little pieces of paper were found in the Cairo Geniza. And if we jump further ahead to the Ashkenazi shtetl ancestors of the 18th century in the Pale of Russia, there was a magical custom of the elderly women of the town walking to the cemetery and surrounding graves with string that would then become wick for candles. The candles were then burned in homes for protection or health or success. They were lit for holiday celebrations or if somebody got sick. And And during the same period of time, women would attend childbirth, and they would circle the laboring mother 7 times while carrying a special sword. This was a magic ritual that was believed to provide protection during what was often a very scary and even deadly period. And it could only be done by the strongest and most pious women in the village. So magical thinking, magical acts, magical ritual, it has been part of Judaism through modernity. So, have I convinced you yet to believe in magic? Okay, maybe not. So let me tell you that even today, you might be performing Jewish magic. I don't know if any of you have attended a wedding and seen a Jewish bride circle a groom 7 times before they enter the chuppah. When I was in rabbinical school, I learned that this was a patriarchal custom that symbolically allowed the woman to make the man the center of her world. I, therefore, did not like it at all. But that actually is not where it comes from. The origins of this ritual are similar to those protection circles that were done around laboring women. The idea is actually that women have protective, strong, magical power that our spouses need. And only we can give that by circling 7 times. But maybe you didn't do that yourself. If you have a mezuzah at your house, or if you noticed a mezuzah when you came into this building, you also were doing Jewish magic. You know the mezuzah, the box on our doorposts. Inside is a scroll that has the words of the Shema and Ve'ahavta that Hannah chanted so beautifully earlier. And it is there because the words that are inside it literally command us, write these words on the doorposts of your house. And so we do. But what you may not know is that if you buy a kosher scroll for the mezuzah and you roll it up and you put it in the box, on the outside are 3 little letters that spell the word Shaddai, which is a name of God. It's actually a name of God from the Torah, El Shaddai. But it's also a 3-letter acronym, Shin Dalid Yud, spelling Shomer Daltot Yisrael, protector of the guardians of Israel. So kind of like pagans sprinkle salt in their threshold, we hang up a mezuzah for protection. So if you have a mezuzah, you've done magic according to Judaism. Okay, now here's where I confess that even though I am trying to convince you about Jewish magic, I'm not really sure I believe in it myself. Do I really believe that if I put a mezuzah on my house, I and my family will be protected? I mean, life doesn't always work that way. I'm also not really sure that the prayers we've been saying tonight, work like magic. That we say a word like a wish and God hears it and grants that wish. I don't think prayer is magic. I think prayer is practice, a spiritual practice that opens our souls to be close to what is holy. So even if Judaism has a long history of practicing magic, I'm not sure that the abracadabra, Wingardium Leviosa type of magic is really my kind of thing. But what about those 2 young girls I started my Devar Torah talking about tonight? Is there magic there? Maybe. But in order to see it, I think we need to change our definition of magic. The rabbis actually did this with their definition of miracle. They didn't see a miracle as something that was supernatural, out of the ordinary, like the splitting of the Red Sea, though they would say that was definitely a miracle. In fact, in our prayer book, in the prayers that we say every day, the rabbis have a radical definition of miracle. They say that it's something we experience every time of day, morning, evening, and noon. This definition of miracle is part of the Hoda'ah prayer. And miracles for the rabbis, and I confess for me too, are everyday things like waking up in the morning, breathing, eating food, seeing the sunset, gathering in community, having a hand to hold or a fur baby to pet, being able to spread our service over Zoom, having family come in from out of town to celebrate two girls as they reach adulthood in Judaism. Miracles. Albert Einstein, at least a quote often attributed to him, said it like this: "There are two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is." So maybe miracles and magic can be defined in similar ways. I would argue that seeing two young girls form a connection in middle school is pretty magical, but maybe our belief in that magic increases when we learn that the maternal grandfathers of both of those girls were best friends when they were growing up. Two Jewish boys raising you-know-what in the 60s, cruising the one-ways, as my mom used to say. The two boys grew up together. They went off to college. They moved away from their little hometown. They got married. They had kids, a girl and a boy, both of them. But those kids were raised in different towns, and though they knew about each other, and they sometimes connected across distance, they pursued unique paths and had careers, and they got married and then had babies of their own. And then by strange chance, these two daughters of these two best friends somehow ended up living in the same city. And they navigated loss and grief and joy and change in their own lives and in the world. And magic, they learned, appears in the strangest of places. And so the granddaughters of those two best friends who raised you-know-what in the 60s ended up at the same school, on the same sports team. And they have an inside joke that involves pulling on each other's hair when they see each other in the hall or before a meet. This is 100% true. My father and Hannah's grandfather grew up together. Our daughters, my daughter and Hannah, go to school together and are on cheer together. I was assigned to work tonight for you all and didn't know it was Hannah's bat mitzvah. I think that's pretty magical, all of it. So maybe you don't believe in tarot to tell the future, and maybe you're not going to bury an incantation bowl at the threshold of your house to keep away demons, and maybe Urim and Tumim stones of divination aren't quite your way to determine what God wants you to do. Maybe you don't think putting a mezuzah on your door will protect you, but maybe there's still room for magic in your life. The magic of life being surprising and mysterious. The magic of love and connection across time and generations. The magic of celebration, of not just one Hannah, but two Hannahs joining together on the same Shabbat. It's a Shabbat of Hannahs. It's the magic of Shabbat, of gathering in community to pray and eat and learn and rest and sing. It's the magic of being alive, even in chaotic times. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel taught, just to be is a blessing, just to live is holy. And I would add, and it's all magical.